Chapter 2, American Indians of California. The big question: how did the first people in my community live? Jumpstart activity. Throughout history, geography has played a big role in how people lived. Geography still has an impact today. Work with a partner to create a list of activities that people do in your community that depend on geography. Remember, the main features from Chapter 1 were deserts, mountains, valleys, hills, coastal areas, oceans, and lakes. And since you're currently home right now, make sure you find maybe someone in the house, in your family, that can help you remember and create a list of activities that people do in your community that depend on the geography of Antioch. Chapter 2 is going to be comprised of 3 lessons. Today we're going to read Lesson 1, which is California Indians. Next week will be Lesson 2, Daily Life. And Lesson 3, Customs, Art, and Folklore. Let's go to the next page and look at a rap. Settling down. Preview the chapter vocabulary as you sing the rap. I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. But remember, anything that's highlighted in yellow are your chapter vocabulary words, okay? 10,000 years ago, people came to this place. Following their food or animals they chase. They came to California as it is known today. They settled and called it home, and we're here to stay. The variety of land throughout the region allow groups to thrive from season to season. Hunting and gathering is how they met their needs. So many foods, animals, berries, nuts, and seeds. They modified the land in order to thrive here, like building dams to trap the salmon called a weir. Many Indian customs are still in effect, traditions kept alive today in full respect. To get into Chapter 2, let's go ahead and work on Quest document-based writing. The title, Life Today and Long Ago. Was daily life in California long ago very different than it is today? Comparing your daily life with the life that California Indians lived long ago is a great way to learn more about them. Quest kickoff. Can you help tell people how life today is alike and different from how American Indians lived in the past? You can write about it so others can learn. Number 1, ask questions. What is your daily life like? What foods do you eat? What clothes do you wear? What do you do for fun? Go ahead and answer number 1. And this is all about you and everything you do for your in regards to your daily life. When you're ready, let's go on to number 2. Number 2, plan. What do you need to know about how California Indians lived? What kinds of pictures or other sources might help? Write down some ideas. Go ahead and pause. Write down some of your ideas about what you need to know about how California Indians lived. Once you're ready, we'll move to number 3 and 4. Number 3, look for Quest connections. Turn to the next page to begin looking for Quest connections that will help you write your informative/explanatory text. Number 4, Quest findings. Write your informative/explanatory text. Use the Quest findings page at the end of the chapter to help you write your informative/explanatory text. Lesson 1, California Indians. The big question. I will know the names, characteristics, and history of California Indians. The vocabulary that we have for today for this lesson is settle, hunter-gatherer. The academic vocabulary, it's conflict and develop. Jumpstart activity. What might California have looked like more than 10,000 years ago? Would the plants and animals have looked different? How about the land? Stand with a partner and share what you think might look the same and what might look different. Many scientists believe people first came to North America from Asia. They became hunters/gatherers in places like California. More than 10,000 years ago, the first people to live in California arrived. Many scientists believe they came from Asia, following groups of animals that they could hunt and eat. Over time, these people stayed in California. There, they began to settle or organize and live on the land. The first Californians. The first people who settled in California lived among many landforms and bodies of water. These included forests in the north, deserts in the southeast, what were then marshes in the Central Valley, and California's coast along the Pacific Ocean. To survive, early Californians learned to adapt to and modify their environment. California's physical geography also had many natural resources that helped them to adapt. The different landforms of each region affected how each group of California Indians lived. They used the region's resources in many ways. For example, early Californians lived as hunter-gatherers. They hunted animals and gathered nuts and plants for food. They used the resources around them to build homes on mountains, in valleys, along the coast, and in deserts. By about 500 years ago, nearly 300,000 people probably lived in California. California Indians did not have a lot of conflict with other groups. In fact, many groups traded goods with each other. Conflict, disagreement. First reading check. Underline the ways early Californians used the region's resources. So I would like for you to go back to that page and underline anything that they used where they lived as the resources. I'm going to give you a hint. It's more than likely going to be in this paragraph right here. Okay? So underline a couple of areas, 1 or 2 sentences. Okay? When you're ready, let's move to the next page. California Indian groups. Hundreds of American Indian groups lived in their own communities across what is today the state of California. They developed their own ways of life and spoke their own languages. Shasta, Yurok, and Yupa. In the Northwest, Indian groups including the Shasta, Yurok, and Hupa settled around the deep redwood forests. People in these groups modified their environment to meet their needs. They cut down the giant trees and carved canoes out of them. Then they traveled on rivers in the canoes to search for food. They also used the wood to make houses. For food, people fished for salmon along forest streams. Modoc. A group called the Modoc lived in the northeast among marshes, rivers, and lakes. The Modoc used many plants as a food source and as medicine. They also used plants for clothing and baskets. They hunted antelope, deer, sheep, and birds. Washoe. The Washoe lived in the Sierra Nevada mountains. They hunted animals such as rabbits, antelope, and deer. The Washoe and other groups that lived in the mountains depended on plants that grew there. The Washoe are known for their beautiful baskets. Here's your second comprehension check. Circle the California Indian group on the map that lives nearest to your community. They're actually talking about this map right here. So knowing that we who are in Antioch, live like about here. We belong to which group? 10, which is the Ohlone. So if I were you, I would circle that, like that. Or I would circle the also in the map as well. All right, when you're ready, let's go ahead and move on. Miwok and Yukots. Today, California's Central Valley is an area of rich farmland. However, long ago, much of this land was watery marsh. California Indians in this area depended on gathering resources rather than farming to survive. For example, the Miwok and the Yukots hunted deer, rabbit, and elk. They also picked acorns and fished for salmon in rivers. Pomo. California Indian groups that lived along California's Pacific coast depended on the ocean to survive. The ocean was a source of food for all coastal people. People caught fish and shellfish. They trapped seals and sea lions too. These animals provided fur that could be made into warm clothing. Some Pomo villages were located inland in the Russian River Valley. These groups searched for animals and plants in nearby forests. They also fished for salmon in inland streams. Salmon could be eaten fresh or dried and eaten later. Some California Indian groups hunted elk. It's a picture of an elk. Gabrielino. The Gabrielino or Tongva lived along the southern coast where Los Angeles and Orange County are today. This group settled there because of the many resources available to them. They hunted, fished in lakes and streams, and picked acorns and other plants. They used tule, a long grass, to make their homes. The Gabrielino used the resources along the coast for food and clothing. This modern photo shows a traditional Gabrielino celebration. Look at their clothes. Mojave and Yuma. Among the California Indian groups that settled in the southeastern desert were the Mojave and the Yuma. Long ago, the area that is now the Mojave Desert was much greener. The Colorado River would flood every year. This allowed the Mojave to farm crops like corn. The Yuma farmed pumpkins, melons, and beans. Reading check. Main idea and details. Fill in the chart right here and identify details about California's Indian groups and the environments or regions in which they lived. So here on this side, you're going to, on these spaces that are blank, you're going to give the name of a California Indian group that was part of that environment or region. So for example, for forest, you're going to look back to the Native American Indian groups starting from page 42 all the way to page 46, and you're going to list maybe 1, 2, or 3 native groups whose environment was the forest. Now the Washoe we have here, so what environment did they live in? You can find that right here in this paragraph, page 42. Central Valley, you're going to look for Native American groups of California that lived in Central Valley. Now for the Pomo and Gabrielino on the other page, you're just going to look where they live, what region, environment they lived, and so on, okay? Go ahead and pause to work on this, and when you're ready, move on to numbers 4 through 6. All right, lesson check 1. So for number 4, let's start. Main idea and details. Give 2 examples of how California Indians modified their natural environment. So you're going to look back to the pages that we just read, and you're going to look for ideas of how they modified their natural environment. So where they lived, how did they change it up so they can live a better life? Okay. Number 5, How did California Indian groups living near the ocean use that resource? So, how did the groups that lived by the ocean, how did they use the ocean as a resource? How did they benefit from living right next to it? What did they find? Okay, what did they do with the ocean? And number 6, why do you think the Mojave and the Yuma did not leave the hot, dry deserts of the southeast and settle somewhere else? So think about it. Why did they not leave the desert, like the Mojave Desert? Why did the Mojave and Yuma stay there, even though they could have gone somewhere else? And you definitely can look for that answer right here on page 46. When you're ready, go ahead and unpause after you finish 4 through 6 so we can move on. Today's literacy skill is going to focus on main idea and details. A paragraph usually has a main idea and supporting details. Finding these parts can help you understand important ideas about a subject. The main idea tells what the paragraph is about. Often the first sentence of a paragraph is the main idea. The details support or tell more about the main idea. So today we're going to read this paragraph, and then you're going to make sure you use this paragraph to answer number 1 and 2 on the next page. The Payomkawicham, also called Luiseño, a California Indian group, lived near what is today Los Angeles. They depended on the area's many resources. Those living inland in valleys gathered acorns, seeds, and fruits. They also hunted using bows and arrows. Those living along the Pacific Ocean fished for shellfish like crabs and mussels. Use the organizer on the next page to list the main idea and supporting details of the paragraph you just read. As a first step, find a partner and take turns reading the paragraph to each other. And here on this picture, the Payomkawicham woman stands next to an olla, a jar used to hold water. So let's take this paragraph and you're going to use it for the next page. Number 1. After reading and listening to the paragraph, fill its main idea in the organizer below. Then fill in 3 supporting details. Remember how here it says often the first sentence in the paragraph is what the main idea is about. You see this first sentence? If I were you, I would write it right here because that is usually the main idea. And then after that, all the sentences after the first sentence are your supporting details. So I would write the second sentence here, third sentence here, fourth sentence here, or something like that. Okay? Go ahead and pause to fill in this using this paragraph. Number 2. Read the paragraph in Lesson 1 under the heading Shasta, Yurok, and Hoopa. Write the main idea and 1 supporting detail on the lines below. So we're going to go back to this page 42. And remember, for the most part, the first sentence is the main idea. So, in the Northwest, Indian groups, including the Shasta, Yurok, and Hoopa, settled around the deep red forests. I would probably do this one. Write that whole sentence right here. And then any sentence after the first sentence, the first paragraph, after the first sentence from this paragraph, so any of these sentences would work well as 1 supporting detail. Okay, go ahead, fill this problem out, and again, you're going to use page 42. The following pages are the answers to Lesson 1. Please make sure to look through all pages to ensure that you have the correct answers.